Well, good afternoon, Adams County. Thanks so much for making time today during the lunch hour to join me here. My name is Clinton Foppel. I'm with Remedy Live, and for the next hour or so, we're going to spend some time talking about a topic that's very important to me, and I know to probably many of you, and that's the topic of mental health. This is Mental Health Awareness Month, and so we're dedicated today to making sure that we do all that we can within our organization to have a dialogue, an important dialogue about mental health. And today you're going to be interacting with different questions that I push to the screens. You'll see questions there. In fact, some of you have already been very honest about how you're doing so far today. It looks like we've got most of us doing above average. You can see that the top answer there, A, or I guess we're tied, A and B. Some of us are crazy good. Some of us are good, and then some of us are just kind of there. And we're seeing some movement still. So again, these are the types of things we're going to be doing today, asking you some questions. You'll have options there on the right-hand side of your screen to be able to answer those. And what we're going to do to get started is we're actually going to have some fun trivia time to be able to learn a little bit together, also give away some prizes from Remedy Live. So again, hope you got your finger ready, because I'm going to give us a chance to be able to win a gift card from Remedy Live today. Just give you an idea of how this works. I'm going to pop this up on the screen. We want to make sure that you know today that everything we're doing is anonymous. However, if you do win, you'll notice here in this video animation up here on the screen that we've got a chance for you to be able to receive that gift card by simply typing in your email address and making that available to us there, so that we can send you an e-card. This is in no way, shape, or form connected to the polling data that we're going to take today, but we do want you to know that we want to give away some things. So hopefully that makes sense to you as you see the animation up there. Questions are going to appear on the right-hand side again, so that you can answer them there on your screen. If you're watching us on YouTube and you're probably thinking, what the heck? I'm kind of feeling gypped here. I don't see no questions coming up on the screen. When you registered, you should have received a URL for soulmediccentral.com. And we do need you to watch this on a computer or on a tablet. This is not yet compatible with a smartphone, although we're going to be there quick, so that you can actually see the video via YouTube. And then you can also, of course, see the questions there on the right-hand side on your screen. And we're going to be doing this throughout the time together. So let's get started. Again, answer your questions as quickly and as correctly as you can. You'll have about 20 seconds to answer each question, and hopefully we'll learn a little bit along the way. So here's our first question. Each year, serious mental illnesses cost the U.S. almost $200 billion in lost earnings. I'm going to start off easy with a true or false question. The Wired experience, something that we started some time ago now, is dedicated to helping organizations, businesses especially, understand the important conversation around mental health. And so today, as we had this conversation, we do indeed want to make sure that you know that we're available to help your business if you're a business owner. We want to help you and your employees know the importance of talking about mental health, having these conversations, and then today we can serve you not only here with the Adams County presentation, but ongoing if we can serve you within your business, your church, your organization. Looks like we got a leader at the top already, a great 5229, rocking it on the leaderboard. So let's go to question 2. What percent of adults in the U.S. have had a problem with substance abuse, and they also suffer from mental illness? Should be a question mark at the end of that. But is it 28.3%, 50.5%, 63.9%, or 73.1%? We today are going to talk about mental health, but we're also going to talk about other things that we do to cope when we struggle with mental illness. And some of those things can be indeed the use of some type of an escape, substances being one of them. And we'll talk about that in a bit more detail here today. Yeah, believe it or not, 50.5% of adults in the U.S. have had a problem with substance abuse. We got a new leader on the leaderboard. We're going to keep going. We got 10 questions total here today as we learn along the way. Next question is coming to us from psychologytoday.com. What's contributing the most to mental illness among children? You probably know that for many years now, if you've heard of Remedy Life prior, that we've been dedicated to youth 13 to 24, but we've expanded our mission now to all people, including children, to help them understand the importance of talking and parents talking to their children. And we have a program called Trends in Teens you'll learn about here in a little bit that can help you as a parent to navigate these things with your children. And believe it or not, screen time is one of the things that we're just most concerned about in how it's affecting the brain development of our young kids. Oh, another new leader on the top. So again, this looks like it's going to be very competitive. You guys are doing great. Let's keep going. Question 4. What percent of Americans will experience a mental illness that will actually interfere with their employment? This is, again, why we're so passionate about talking about mental health. This is something that interferes with regular life, daily life, makes it very difficult for people to even go and be able to work and function in the workplace. Is it 1 in 100? Is it 1 in 50? 1 in 25? Or 1 in 10? And today, wherever you're coming at from this, whether you're someone that's involved in leading an organization, whether you're involved in healthcare, mental health care, the conversation that we want to have today to serve Adams County is that all people matter. All people deserve to have the services, the resources available to them. I'm so grateful for Mandy and her partnership as a system of care coordinator in that community, and that she was able to connect us with all you. So thank you so much, Mandy, for doing that. Okay, same leader on the board. Let's go to question 5. Look a little bit closer to home. How many Hoosiers, how many people here in the fine state of Indiana live with a serious mental illness? Is it 1 in 10, 1 in 17, 1 in 28, or 1 in 39? Remedy Live started out locally, focused here in the Fort Wayne region, but believe it or not, in just a number of years, we were already U.S. focused, serving all different states of the country, people and clients through our chat center in every part of the United States. And of course, we always love when we can serve our local communities here in the Hoosier land. So believe it or not, we are committed to helping 1 in 17 Hoosiers that struggle with a serious mental illness. And we're going to talk today about the difference between mental health and mental illness, because there's definitely a big difference between those two terms. Suicide is a conversation that we have a lot at Remedy Live. Suicide is the blank leading cause of death among people aged 10 to 34 in the United States. This, of course, is a somber topic, and one of the reasons why we do the events we do and the discreet way we do it through technology like we're doing now with anonymity is because we know these are tough themes, these are tough topics to navigate, but we do hope that by doing this we can lower the stigma around talking about these things so that we see suicide become a non-issue, like it just goes away in our communities. We're just too tired of losing, too sad losing people that we love and we care for. So today, we hope that we can continue to lower that stigma. And it looks like we still have Azur at the top of the leaderboard. 4 more questions left. Let's another question here in regards to suicide. What percent of people who die by suicide had shown symptoms of mental health condition, according to interviews with families, with family members and with friends? We're doing this today because we want to equip you watching with the tools needed and with the awareness needed as to how easy it should be to have a conversation with our family and our friends, because symptoms are available for us to view and to see and to understand, but we have to learn how to translate them and discern them so that indeed we can help. And believe it or not, 90% of people who died by suicide showed symptoms that family and friends looking back could see, and maybe they just didn't pick up on. So 3 more questions left here. 1 in blank U.S. adults experience mental illness each year. What do you think that is? 1 in blank U.S. adults experience mental illness each year. Is it 4? Is it 5? Is it 6? Or is it 7? Again, today's program is committed to helping us become more aware of the trends in mental health. And here's the secret. We all have mental health. We have no choice in that. We all have a brain. We all have that component to our organic health, that mental health. And yet we need to talk more about it because it's such a critical part of the way that we interact, the way that we make decisions, the way that we have relationships with people. So, well, we've got 2 more questions left, and it still is possible for somebody else to win other than Azur, but there's some pretty strong leadership there at the top. Let's talk about loneliness. This is something that we've noticed a real strong connection between mental health and the issue of loneliness in America. And according to a study done by CIGNA, what percentage of Americans are actually lonely? And of course, loneliness as an issue, this is someone not feeling like they have anyone that they're really connected to, that really someone that really knows them. And it's just crazy in a social media driven culture that this would even be an issue. But believe it or not, 60% of Americans, according to this study, feel lonely. And that's concerning. That's concerning because we shouldn't feel lonely. We should be able to have conversations. We should be able to have dialogue about the most important thing, which is our lives, the future that we all have, and the value that we all have. Okay, one last question. Still very possible here. Again, back to the issue of loneliness. Studies have concluded that chronic loneliness increases our risk of an early death. An early death. By what percent? Is it 5%, 14%, 19%, or 23%? You know, my hope today, although I just want to be very clear, I'm not a clinician, I'm not a therapist, I'm actually just a normal everyday guy. My hope is that today we can uncover some information that may indeed help you to understand better just all the different, pieces, these moving pieces that are part of why mental illness is just on the increase within our country. Believe it or not, 14% greater chance of early death. And so it looks like we've got a winner. And so I'm going to actually end the poll here and give you a chance, Zur, to be able to decide if you want to claim that gift card. It's going to be available to you through a pop-up window on the screen. What I want to do next is just play a short video, kind of give you some idea of what we do at Remedy Live to make you more aware of our different programs, and then we'll be right back with some more polling questions, so stick around.
So what is Remedy Live? Well, we get people talking about the things that we don't talk about. Our method centers around using technology to engage people around what we call the secret struggle. That is, something in our life that we're not talking about, but something that's inflicting pain due to its isolating nature. Through technologies we've created, like our live chat software and interactive polling platform, we've been able to engage teens and adults alike in taking the first step to share their secret struggle if they have one. These methods allow for courage to be mustered to get the help they need, and in many cases, create important steps to talking more openly about what's been kept in secret. At Remedy Live, this happens every hour in our 24-hour chat center. Each year, thousands of people come who are caught in struggle or dealing with something that's overwhelming them. Our Soulmedic staff meets them where they're at, engaging each person in conversation after conversation, actively listening to their story while providing compassionate responses so people can see their lives as valuable and important. This has really led Remedy Live to get more involved in helping schools, businesses, and churches break the stigma surrounding mental health. With our Trends in Teens program, we're able to help parents understand how they can engage their kids. Our seasonal podcast focuses on trending topics, while our workshops visit groups on location to use interactive polling to talk about dangerous apps, mental health trends within schools, and other tips for parents. Our Get School Tour events bring the conversation about mental health to students in public schools by offering a high-energy, high-impact assembly program. Here we educate and invite students to open up through our live polls about what secret struggles they're facing, if any, while connecting them with the local network of care. And the newest resource at Remedy Live is our Wired experiences. We go into organizations to share about mental health in the workplace, the church, or any place where people spend time. Using live polling, we're able to see where people may be thriving or struggling in their lives. And then, through interactive education and local partnerships, we can connect people that are hurting with resources that help them where they have a need. So that's it. Everything we do at Remedy Live is about the meaningful conversation, helping people know that their secret struggle shouldn't have the final say on their future. We're Remedy Live. We chat, we listen, and we love.
So I hope that gives you a better idea of the programs that we offer. We are trying to do all that we can with children, with our Get School Tour Junior program, teens with the junior high, senior high Get School Tour program proper, our Wired experiences, which we're doing now for adults, and we do that in church environments, through with congregations. We do this through businesses and employees. We want to serve the communities that are definitely in our vicinity here in the Fort Wayne area. And it might be important for me just to share with you just uniquely that, Remedy Live is a faith-based organization. We've been committed to extending God's love to everyone that we meet, no strings attached. We're very inclusive. We try to do all that we can to make sure that we are clear with the general population, that we value every human being, no matter their age, their gender, their race, their sexual orientation, their religious views. We're here to help because we believe that the church, we believe that the Christian should be committed to loving their neighbor as their self. And so that's part of why we're doing all that we do in our community and motivated by God's love. The way that that's manifested, believe it or not, in the last few years has been just unbelievable. We've been able to have so many conversations with people around the country. Last year alone, 31,000 plus conversations with just a variety of different people, different topics, different themes. You can see that a lot of the themes in the bottom right corner there are mental health related. And then, in the last 4 years, we've been able to serve 116 schools, believe it or not, within an hour of Fort Wayne, with over 203 events. And we've done a lot of what we're doing here today: interactive polling, all anonymous, education around mental health, letting kids know, letting students know that there is so many different ways that they can get help. And I'll talk today a little bit about adolescence and how this is such a difficult season for so many, but we've been absolutely blessed by being able to help so many people in our community. Our goal today is that we want to educate, we want to encourage people to have meaningful conversation about mental health so that the stigma around this issue can be lowered. And stigma is an interesting thing. It's a prejudice really in many ways, in that it's a wall that keeps us from having really meaningful conversations about mental health. There's a negativity attached to it. There's a fear attached to it. There's a lack of willingness to be transparent. And that's why we're using polling today, because it makes it easier for us just to be blunt honest, to be very honest about who we are and what we are. And as I look at your answers about that question I just asked you about where you're coming from in regards to your experience, hopefully you were able to notice that you could select multiple answers. But it looks like we do have a lot of parents there with kids between the age of 6 and 24. Quite a few of you working in government agencies. Some of you working in corrections, which is fantastic. Some of you working in the church. Some of you involved in education, which is great. And then mental health care and health care also being involved here today. And as I look at these different areas that we have influence in, I just want to make sure that it's really clear that today this conversation is not coming from a therapist counseling perspective. I am not a clinician. Our team at Remedy Live and our 24-hour chat center are active listeners. We're not counselors. We don't declare to be. We're just trying to be normal people, normalizing the conversation around mental health. And so today, a lot of what you're going to hear from me, I may quote some people that are PhDs, that are experts. I may reference some of the data that we've collected through some of our events. But the reality is that today I'm just trying to be a normal guy having a normal conversation about this topic. And, I know we've been in the midst of some very unique circumstances within the COVID-19 season. And so I do want to know how this has affected you and how social distancing has affected you, how the stay-at-home order has affected you, because I believe that although mental illness was on the increase prior to the coronavirus, we've just seen a shift in so many colossal ways over these last couple of months. And, as we look at your answers, this is what you're saying, that a lot of us would say that it's affected me more than I expected. This shift, I joke that I'm an introvert, and, it would have been a dream for me to be able to hang out in my man cave and watch sports and watch movies and a lot of that was pulled away. And then now, here 2 months later, I'm craving the ability to be able to be face-to-face with friends and family members. And, it's been a really tough thing for so many. And so, again, I appreciate your honesty in answering that question today, because it indeed has affected us in a lot of different ways, things we weren't expecting. And the conversation that we're going to have today is truly going to help us to do this. We want to have some really meaningful conversations today around mental health, because, again, we want to see that stigma removed. But in order for us to do that, we probably need to be pretty honest about the fact that we've maybe gone through some things. Of course, the coronavirus being kind of this big animal that's kind of come into our lives these last couple of months. But you notice there's some multiple options there as well on your screen that you can answer in regards to some of the points of concerns or stressors that you've had in your life in this last month. And, we know that, for example, that the sickness, the coronavirus, can really cause a lot of fear in regards to the way it can affect us in not knowing how to navigate this, the vulnerability factor of so many people in our lives. And as we look at your answers, some of us are dealing with the anxiety, the stress of getting sick. Some of us are concerned about our spouses, our children getting sick. If we have older parents or grandparents, we're nervous about them being so vulnerable. Unemployment being a concern, personal space getting more and more difficult, loss of freedoms, and then food, and then other options there at the bottom. These are examples of just normal everyday worries, stressors that can affect our ability to navigate a healthy mental awareness. And I think it might be important today to be able to define, from our perspective at Remedy Live, what mental health is. And this is our own working definition. We define mental health as how strong the brain is functioning at translating, that's a key word for us, translating the relationships, the circumstances, and really our own perception of self amidst our day-to-day routine. We define it this way because we believe the brain is an incredible instrument. In fact, experts say that the brain is still one of the most amazing tools, if you will, devices, if you will, in the entire universe. It's so mysterious. We're still so in the dark about its amazing power, and yet it's a translation instrument in so many ways. It's organic and it's part of our human body by all means, but it's translating the circumstances, our day-to-day circumstances, even pre-COVID-19, difficulty in the workplace, difficulty in life, circumstances, financial circumstances, raising kids, circumstances. Those are all happening, of course, 168 hours a week, 24 hours a day. We've got circumstances that the brain's translating, and that's affecting our overall mental health, that capacity, that functionality. And then the other side is relationships, right? Because relationships, it's a huge part of who we are, and that's why this COVID-19 thing has caused us to so much of a shift in that regard, because relationships have had to suffer, and yet relationships can either help us with our mental health and help us become stronger, or negative relationship, bullies, abusers, that person that we just don't get along with, that can diminish our mental health. And so those two things are really an important part of this. Now we're going to talk about the biological side as well of mental health, because of course we can have the greatest of circumstances and we can have the greatest of relationships, and because our brain is still a biological organ, it can still suffer physically, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But it's so important that we understand that as we go into this. The difference between mental health and mental illness also is absolutely key. Mental health is something that we, of course, all have, because we all have a brain, just like everyone has health just in general. But a mental illness is an illness that affects the way we think, the way we feel, the way we behave, and of course, the way we interact with others. And so today, I don't want you to be confused. We all have mental health, and that's why we all need to talk about it. But likewise, I think to a certain extent, we'd all agree that mental illness is something that more people have than we would probably even know fully. But we all know someone who's struggled with mental health and struggled with their mental health, and perhaps even struggled with mental illness at some level. And so today is an important conversation, because we want to make sure that we remove the stigma by being honest about our mental health and understanding better why mental illness is something we need to talk about. I had a back injury a couple of years ago, and I had to have surgery. And in fact, I remember being at South Adams to do a school tour, and I was just a week away from going in to have surgery, and I barely could move. I was hobbling out on the stage. I had 2 herniated discs. There's no reason why I should have been on the stage in the first place, but you could tell. If you were there in the crowd, could have said, "Oh, that guy, he's in bad shape. He needs to get off that stage." You could tell that I had a physical injury, I had a physical problem with my body. But with mental health, if I have a mental illness, oftentimes there may be behaviors that are exhibited, but for the most part, you're not going to know I'm struggling unless I speak it. And today, again, that's the important step, that we would be honest about talking about our mental health. And, as I look at your answers to that last question, we have a mixed bag, right? It's 18% saying you find it easy to talk about, 56% saying you talk about it with people that you trust, 17% saying you talk about it with your family members only, 11% admitting, you know what, I don't talk about it. And so today, again, grateful for your willingness to participate in this. My hope is that for those of you that do talk about your mental health, that you'll talk about it more, continue to be a greater champion of this conversation in our community, because, truth of it, we have to change the trends within our state. With 1 in 5 Americans living with a mental health condition and 1 in 17 Hoosiers living with a serious mental health condition, the struggle is because of a secret struggle. We're going to get to that here in a second, causing, of course, that stigma to become such a real deal. And I'm really, really thankful for your willingness to be honest today about your unique story. And I want to share a unique story of a friend of mine. His name is Chris, and he was kind enough, transparent enough to share his story so that it would motivate, encourage all of us to be more willing to share ours. Check this out as Chris shares his story.
Growing up is, at all ages, is confusing and difficult. We all have our experiences there. I think even beyond just your typical struggles that you deal with and trying to figure out who you are and figuring out what life is all about, for me, it really started to take shape middle school, high school years, where I befriended somebody who grew to be the closest friend I've ever experienced in my life. And it was during these times that we grew closer. We grew to have a great friendship. Some people would refer to us as brothers. What I found was as I grew closer to my friend Paul, we really started to share some of the things that we struggled with in life. And we really created this relationship where we could talk open and honestly with each other, which is rare in itself, but let alone as a 15, 16, 17-year-old kid. Out of high school, he joined the Marines. He went and served 4 years, came back, and for the first 3 days that he was home, we were inseparable. It was like we picked up right where we were when we were 17 years old. And then one night he came over and said, "Hey, me and some friends are going into the city." We're from Bluffton, so the city was Fort Wayne. And I said, I'm going to sit this one out. You guys have fun. Be careful. And he was killed in the car accident that night on the way home. And I'm a young man, had been married a few months, and this just took a downward spiral. It doesn't have to be one particular thing, but what I found was, for me, it was that loss that triggered me going into a state of unhealthy decisions, poor decisions, self-medication, and as a result of that, it just completely destroyed relationships. It destroyed bonds. It destroyed trust. The rock bottom for me was after it was already determined that the marriage that I was in wasn't going to survive. I found myself in a somewhat of a rundown house. I knew people that were there, but I found myself in a dark room at 2:30 in the morning, holding a bottle in my hand, and I remember distinctively throwing it away, falling on my knees, and just praying, because it was there all along, but that's all I had left at that point in my mind. And that was the moment of reckoning for me, was realizing the path that I had created.
Stories like that, and that's Chris's story. That's not your story, perhaps. That's not my story. But the truth of it is that the brain is such an incredible instrument, such an incredible organ, that as it records these types of experiences, we can see it affected in deep ways. And proud of Chris. He's a friend. I actually spoke to him yesterday. the way that he has continued to dialogue that affected him then, but it still affects him now. But talking about it gives him power to be able to navigate and get healthy in regards to his overall mental health. And, the brain, again, fascinating thing as we look at this, and you'll notice referencing a website there at the bottom that I really want to make sure that you check out. The brain is a fascinating thing in that this organ within our skull is really controlling everything about our body. It doesn't see itself as the brain. It sees itself as part of the entire body structure. It's beating our heart. It's helping us breathe. It's helping us to understand ourselves. It's computing and calculating and translating. And it's often been referred to as a supercomputer. It's this incredibly complex instrument that is helping us to make decisions, again, translating our identity based on all of the data that it's receiving in real time. And again, because it's organic, it's also affected, of course, by the chemical composition. It's affected by injury. If we were to suffer a head injury, we could, of course, wound the brain like we could wound any part of our physical body. But it's such a unique part of our body in that it sees itself as the organic whole of our body, and yet it is so specialized in that so much of who we are, what we see, what we think, what we do is comprised within that brain of ours. And, on that website that I referenced, it talks about how our life experiences, if the brain is the supercomputer, our life experiences, kind of like what Chris shared, that's the software. And sometimes software, although it's ran to function and perform a certain function, sometimes it can get corrupted. And sometimes we can see viruses enter, the situation. And maybe the metaphor breaks down a little bit there, but my point is that all of these calculations, these things going on within the brain, do help us to better appreciate how complex it is. And we often will blame people for their behaviors and say, why do you do that? And we will be irritated when people, act a certain way or do something that doesn't seem right to us. And, I know that we've been as a society quite judgmental of those that suffer from different psychiatric issues because we judge them and they definitely have concerns, right? But we don't often realize what's going on. This isn't a behavior issue. This is more something going on within the chemical composition of this supercomputer, of this brain. Fascinating quote here that I would love you to check out later on. Eric Kandel, he's an MD. He's a Nobel Prize laureate and professor of brain science at Columbia University, says he believes that it's all about biology. All mental processes are brain processes, and therefore all disorders of mental functioning are biological diseases. He says the brain is the organ of the mind. Where else, I should say, could mental illness be if not in the brain? And so, again, we get so committed to mental illness being something that someone does. But perhaps if we looked at it differently, just like we look at the rest of it, like we don't get angry at someone for having a cold. We don't get angry at somebody for having cancer, although it's an incredibly discouraging disease to watch someone struggle through the chemotherapy and the debilitation of it all. But we don't think oftentimes about the brain as an organ that can get sick. It can become diseased. And when it becomes diseased, yes, behaviors can change. And it's so important that we have an appreciation for that so that we can value those, love those that are struggling, perhaps in secret, not telling anybody about it for fear of being judged for what it is that they're going through. Another quote comes to us from the former director of the National Institute of Mental Health. INSO believes the diagnosis and treatment of mental illness is today where cardiology was 100 years ago. And like cardiology of yesteryear, the field is poised for dramatic transformation, he says. We are really at the cusp of a revolution in the way we think about the brain and behavior, partly because of technological breakthroughs. We're finally able to answer some of the fundamental questions. And I think this is fascinating. This actually is a quote from a number of years ago already, and we've made great strides with MRI technology and all kinds of other brain scan technology to better understand the health of the brain. And today, again, I'm not an expert, so I'm not going to get deep into that, but I will say that what we know is that we can't read your mind. We can't read your mind. And, it's something today that if we could only get a little bit more honest as a society, we could see great strides here with removing this stigma. But, as I ask you this question about where you're at today, again, all anonymous, but how would you currently rate, or how would you place your current state of mental wellness? This is what you're answering. It looks like a lot of you doing good, which is fantastic. But as I look down those lists and I see D and C, numbness, and again, it's kind of an irregular way to look at things, but when you don't feel anything, perhaps it's because there are some situations going on within your life where you're not able to communicate verbally what's really been going on. I had a friend that came to me recently, and he was talking about some chest pains. He thought he was going to have a heart attack, and really he was having a panic attack, but he had never had that before, and he didn't know how to communicate it. And it wasn't until he went and saw a professional he was able to get out what he'd kept in. Again, we cannot read your mind. And so it's so critical, it's so important that we take the time needed to share what it is that we're going through. At Remedy Live, we're committed to something we call the secret struggle, helping people know that secret struggles, these points of isolating pain in people's life, that they can threaten our mental health and our well-being. They can really cause us deep, deep struggle if we keep them in and we don't push them out. And again, because we use so much anonymous technology that we've created here at Remedy Live for the purposes of these types of conversations, we've made it easy for people to be able to share those struggles in such a way that they can just get them off their chest. And so I'm going to take a quick break here, give you guys a chance for your brain to change gears. And while I do that, I'm going to push out another question or two. But stick around. We're going to be right back here more with our WIREDx event.
24 hours a day, texting 494949 connects you with a caring soul medic who's available to talk about whatever's on your mind. Struggling with being overwhelmed? Worried about the future? Need some guidance in navigating a difficult decision? The Soul Medic team at Remedy Live are fantastic listeners, here for you with no strings attached. They're not counselors, but rather normal, everyday people trained to help you find remedies to overcome the struggles you find yourself in. Whether you're dealing with depression, loneliness, or feelings of hopelessness, the team at Remedy Live is committed to you 24 hours a day, 365 days a year to help you know you're never alone and have been created on purpose. So what are you waiting for? Text 494949 or visit RemedyLive.com to start a text conversation today. We're Remedy Live. We chat, we listen, we love.
Whether you're a teen, an adult, a parent, or a 20-something, there's something for you at RemedyLive.com. We have encouraging videos posted of people's transparent stories, providing us all hope that what we're going through doesn't need to isolate us from an incredible future. Student stories, stories from men, women, fathers, mothers, all committed to helping people like you know that you are not alone. Our blog has dozens of posts that cover a wide variety of topics dealing with mental wellness, self-care, and how to renew our minds in the midst of a dark season. If you're a parent, there's resources for you too. Tools on how to engage your son or daughter in a meaningful conversation that brings strength to your relationship, or guidance on how to strengthen your marriage and deepen the relationship with your spouse. Our podcasts are created to introduce you to real people, leaders, parents, and students alike that want to help you through their story of redemption and courage. And of course, RemedyLive.com is outfitted with real people 24 hours a day by simply clicking the Chat Now button so a soul medic can help you find what you're looking for, or simply provide presence during a difficult time. You matter, and we're here for you, no matter what. We're Remedy Live. We chat, we listen, we love.
I'm so grateful for your honesty here with my last question, just sharing some of the things that you are concerned about, secret struggles that you've got, some of them related to the coronavirus, some related to the uncertainty and the feeling of the future, managing responsibilities. One of you says you're just tired, and that could be this time of day, or it could just be that you're tired because of all this season. I know I've been working more than usual these last 2 months. Relationships with coworkers, we see that. And so again, so grateful and thankful for your honesty. This is just a real practical example of how to get off the chest what you've kept perhaps in isolation. And isolation is such an enemy, right? Because it keeps us believing that we're alone. It keeps us believing that there's nothing there for us to get the help that we need. Our tapes in our mind that play these messages cause us to believe that we're all alone amidst that struggle. Secret struggle can manifest itself in a variety of ways. We see substance abuse, we see abuse. We'll talk about substance abuse here in a little bit, neglect, addiction, hopelessness. But the question is, why is that isolation factor so bad? And from a human being perspective, we know that, if you go to prison, if you go to jail, and they put you in solitary confinement for something you've done, that's meant to be a punishment for a reason. We know from studies that putting someone away from somebody else or putting people away from the general community wounds our ability to feel like we are part of that community, part of other people's lives. And we were created to be in community, to be in friendships, to be in relationships, to talk and verbalize our struggles. And just as a side note, I do believe that we counterfeit that true community when we think a computer, when we think social media, when we think those things can fill that. The brain can't be fooled. It truly does want and need that real life-on-life relationship. And we see manifestation of struggles, right? I'm going to define for us a couple of mental illnesses that we see that are quite common. Anxiety, the first one, this manifestation of kind of an overwhelming nervousness, fear, apprehension, worry. This is something that we see so often among young people where they just feel like they can't quite manage the expectation. They feel constantly like they can't be good enough. They're worried about all the things going on, and even more so now with the uncertainty of school. And of course, we're ending school this year, but even next year, and graduation for some, and athletics and sports, and the future. Like my son asked me the other day, are masks now part of the wardrobe forever? And that causes anxiety. And we don't always realize that the brain is becoming anxious. But it's changing the way we behave. It's changing the way our health kind of manifests. The other thing that we're seeing, of course, depression. It's been something that we've often not fully understand. And we compare depression, and this is a general definition, to a mind fog. This way that the brain begins to lose interest in activities, regular routine, and this significant impairment in daily life. This is a very general term because we know that depression is chemical in so many ways, and I'm going to talk about that here in a second. But depression can also be caused, like with Chris's story, by an event that we go through, that we experience. But we know, of course, from a biological perspective, that really what we've got in the mix of this is the neurochemical makeup of our brain, the neurotransmitters that really are part of things like depression and part of anxiety. And norepinephrine, serotonin, and dopamine, these are important neurochemicals that within the brain are causing synapses to fire. Chemical levels have got to be at a healthy level in order for us to stay at a place of happiness, to stay at a place where we feel good about ourselves. And if not, these neurotransmitters, as they transmit, they can cause us to become more anxious. They can cause us to become, more depressed. It can cause us to struggle. And so as we think about something like norepinephrine as an example, this is a neurochemical that, we now know a lot more about, that this is secreted in response to stress. So this fight or flight neurochemical. So when we go through stressful times, it's secreted. But what if it's overly secreted because of anxieties or struggles in our lives, especially during childhood? And then what if we begin to see low levels of this neurochemical? That in itself can lead to depression. And these are biological exchanges that you don't even think about doing. You can't control the release of this. You can't control the release of serotonin, as an example. But this is this is considered the happy neurochemical. This is regulating mood and social behavior. It's regulating appetite and digestion, sleep, memory, sexual desire, and function. And this is critical to us being able to stay above the waterline when it comes to depression, when it comes to things like anxiety. And then dopamine, it's a far more popular topic. Dopamine is. This is the reward chemical, and we know that dopamine is released in a lot more quantity, especially with all the screens that we have. Apps are created to actually create dopamine release. But this is a reward neurochemical that helps play a role in how we feel pleasure. It's a big part of how we think and we plan. It helps us persevere, to focus and find things interesting. And all of these neurochemicals are going on within the brain of ours without us always being aware of what's happening. And when the chemicals get low, for whatever reason, because our biology changes because of adolescence and moving from a child age to an 11, 12, 13, or even later, I just turned 50, this midlife shift. The brain, we now know through something called neuroplasticity that the brain is able to change and to grow in a good way, but we can also struggle if we don't continue to talk about mental health. If we use substances, for example, if we struggle with substance use, it can really harm the brain. And it can cause some of these chemicals that we just talked about to really struggle to be a part of the overall brain makeup. We know this, that depression, left untreated, can lead to thoughts of wanting to end our lives. And if you've ever experienced the loss of a loved one, or you've ever even yourself had struggles or thoughts of suicide, this is a dire, dire thing. Depression can be caused by a sudden change in relationships, unhealthy stress, substance abuse, physical health, financial struggle, or biological changes to our brain. But isolation is often the natural response to increasing depression. We often pull out of community because we don't know what to do. We don't know what to say. And when we pull out of community, that's the slippery slope of starting to believe that we don't matter and that no one really cares. And that's why these conversations today and why we have to have continual conversations are so critical. I want to play a quick promo, if you will, that fits into this conversation about escapism and substance abuse. We're so grateful for our friendship with the Lutheran Foundation. They've started an initiative to help parents talk to their children about substances. I'm going to play this quickly and I'll be right back after this.
It may look like your kids aren't listening when you talk to them about drugs, but they are. Get past the body language and have a conversation. It's worth the effort. Need help on how to get started? Go to worththeeffort.org.
When mental illness becomes a major part of a mind, especially an adolescent mind, we want to fix that. Even children and teenagers don't like the feelings they have, and so they like to substitute a better feeling. Of course, that's where pills and the use of opiates come in. And so Worth the Effort is a great way for you to get connected if you're a parent. Check out that website later on. And you might even check out a brand new video story that we produced, just an incredible opportunity. We interviewed a young man named Nate, and how he at a young age got involved, even though he had a great Christian family, great Christian school, got involved in using heroin, and how that really took over his life. And you can learn more about that on our RemedyLive.com website by going to RemedyLive.com/Nathan if that's of interest to you. Well, I want to switch gears here, and I want to ask you to help us understand a little bit in regards to depression, in regards to anxiety, where you're coming from. And on your screen, you'll notice you've got those top 3 or 4 options on your screen regarding depression, and then you've got the bottom 4 regarding anxiety. If you could just help me to kind of understand where you're coming from in regards to these 2 areas. Again, confession is a good thing when it helps us move from where we're at to where we need to be in regards to getting the help, getting the resources, getting the care that we deserve. And so, again, as you answer the question, this is what you're saying. It looks like a lot of you are not struggling with depression and some of you not struggling with anxiety. But as we go down that list, some of you dealing with mild depression, some of you dealing with moderate depression. And then again, going down further, the moderate anxiety there at the bottom, the mild anxiety as well. Again, my question to you, and I'll ask it this way, is have you ever spoken to somebody about that? And if you have, fantastic, because that helps you actually in the healing process to be vulnerable and honest with someone. Now, sadly, we sometimes get rejected. We should never give up if that's the case, because talking about what we go through in this mind of ours verbally helps us to be able to deal with the reality that we need help. that we need resources, that we're recognizing that there are some chemical issues going on with the head that we all experience at times, in some mild form perhaps, but we experience it, that we need the kind of help that we can share, that we can get open and honest about. And so I'm grateful for your willingness to share that. As we take another step, I want to know, and you can actually answer multiple options on this question that's popping up on your screen. What areas of your current life are you having above average difficulty in? As we talked earlier about circumstances, there may be certain components of your current life, your current stage, your situation, and of course, coronavirus being set aside, there are areas where we're struggling specifically. I look at this and, work has been an issue. Of course, finding the new normal of Zoom meetings and working from home. Some of us struggling with our physical health, our mental health. Parenting has become a new type of concern because we're doing distance learning for our kids and being teachers and gym teachers and principals, as well as mom and dad. Marriage is a big deal to me. Marriage can struggle so much, and it can cause us to become really unwell with just a sadness, with a depression within our own hearts, or an anxiety about the future of our relationships. My wife and I are very committed to this and do an annual marriage conference because we know this is such a major part of so many people's lives. But in the work context, again, this is why we do the WIREDx, to help employers know that we need to talk more about the anxieties, the stressors within our workplace. So again, thank you so much for your honesty. Loneliness there, we see that at 8%. Mental health down there at 8%. I'm so grateful for your honesty today. Well, in our last few minutes together, I want to take a bit of a different direction. I want to talk to you about a study that was done, a few years ago now, called the Adverse Childhood Experience Study. And many of you probably have heard of this if you're in education or mental health or even in healthcare. But this was a study done with several thousand people that took advantage of this survey, this study. And basically the study was to find out, do experiences in childhood cause us to try to navigate our trauma type, translation within the brain. I'm messing this up here, but basically, does childhood trauma cause us to become unwell? That was what the survey, the study was done. And so I'm going to push out a question. But before I do that, I want to push this up on the screen. They were able to diagnose, some behaviors that we see when someone struggles from their childhood with various traumas: lack of physical activity, smoking, alcoholism, drug use, missed work. And then you go down there further: obesity, diabetes, depression, suicide attempts, STDs, heart disease, cancer, stroke, COPD, and believe it or not, broken bones. These things were exhibited when these were risk outcomes because of childhood trauma. And what they were able to come up with were 10 different areas that maybe I have in our childhood that we experienced that may cause us to become more susceptible to some of those things that I just showed on that last screen, that we might be more susceptible to some of these behaviors because of some of these instances that we went through. And so I'm going to push this to your screen. And if you would be so willing to be, again, before you click the submit button, choose which of those areas, as you look down the list, which areas did you experience when you were a child? Did you experience physical abuse? Did you experience emotional abuse, sexual abuse? Maybe perhaps you were physically neglected. You were never hugged. Or you're emotionally neglected. You were never told that you were loved. Maybe you saw mental illness in your home. Maybe you had an incarcerated relative. Maybe your mother was treated violently, or there was substance abuse in your life on a regular basis. Or perhaps you're a child of divorce. And this is kind of what is coming in by way of your responses. And I'm so grateful for, again, your honesty today. We have so much in common here. A lot of us would say none of the above, which is fantastic. I've done this ACE score with many groups, and I don't think I've ever seen it higher. So good for you that you don't have an ACE score at all. But that means that you're to be part, again, of being that lifeguard on the edge of the pool to help us save lives. Because the rest of us, I have a 6 out of 10 on my ACE score. I've dealt with these issues, and I've noticed how they've affected me in great ways. And as we look down the list, I think the thing that we have most in common are the emotional neglect and so many of us that have experienced divorce, other than, of course, the none of the above. We see substance abuse in the family. We see a lot of mental illness in our families, sexual abuse, which breaks my heart, emotional abuse. These are real things, right, that we have gone through in our childhood that has formed in many ways our understanding of self. And when we talk about norepinephrine and the fight or flight, that neurochemical has been part of those trauma experiences as a child. And the brain is trying to regulate that chemical based on the trauma that you endured. What we know from this study that's absolutely important for us to understand today is this, that the higher our ACE score, the higher the experiences that we have, then the chances of us having disrupted neurodevelopment, social emotional impairment, high-risk behaviors, disease, disability, and social problems, and believe it or not, actually experiencing an earlier death in our one and only life if we don't figure out that we need to start talking about those things from our past, those confessions from what we've struggled with. And I'm not trying to say that if you've got trauma in your past that you're going to die early. I'm not saying that if you have trauma in your past, you're going to get cancer. I'm saying that what we now know is that the brain keeps a record. It keeps a score. And trauma can affect us in such complex ways within our organic body, things that we weren't quite aware of years ago, but now we are aware of. And so, my next question for you, again, as we close our time together here in the next few minutes is, have you ever taken advantage of talking to a professional? We see the doctor regularly for the physical, and of course we have other experts in our life that we see on a regular basis for various things, but I'm grateful to see that a lot of you would say yes. And I just love that. I think that every one of us needs to have a therapist in our life. I think we need to have someone we can, I call it barfing on. It sounds terrible, but I barf all over just to get things off my chest, to get an objective opinion about what we're doing, what we're going through in our lives. But the truth of it is, the number one thing that we can do is to talk about it. Just talking about it with someone who can help us. And we also need to focus on self-care and what it looks like for us to care for the selves that we are, the bodies we have, the minds that we have. And you'll notice there's a bunch of options up there as to perhaps how you self-care, how you take care of your mind, of your body. And so remember this, that it's easy for us to blame those childhood experiences. It's easy to blame our boss. It's easy to blame our spouse. It's easy to blame everybody else. But what we have responsibility over is us and what we can do to take care of ourselves. And as we look at the various ways that you guys have talked about doing this, some of us meditate, some of us pray, some of us read and bring information into our mind. Some of us are of faith, and we rely on the Bible for inspiration and renewal of our mind. We've got friends in our life. The spa, although that might be complicated during the coronavirus, the spa, getting away and pampering ourselves a little bit. Music expression, art, exercise, sports, so important. And I love that 0% of you say that you don't self-care, because again, that's part of us staying mentally well. And that's maybe why we're doing so well among those of you that are watching right now in regards to this. I want to go back and just kind of point out too that there are great resources to help us to be able to understand how to have these types of conversations. CZ Awkward, if you've never seen their commercials, they're hilarious. You definitely want to check out the website, czawkward.com. They've got some great resources on there that can help us. In fact, I just love this next video. I want to show it to you just on how to approach this awkward silence. Take a look.
How to start that conversation with your friend about their mental health. First, make sure you aren't too far away. Closer. Closer. Whoa, too close. Now ask something open-ended like, you all good?
Are you all good?
Or is everything okay?
Is everything okay?
Well done, awkward teenage actor.
Actually, no. Thanks for asking.
Scroll on for more ways to start the conversation.
You know, at Remedy, we've been committed to this question, how are you, for almost a decade. And we believe that we should be asking, how are you, and really meaning it. Oftentimes, that's a question that's asked to people, but we really don't care to hear the answer. We don't spend the time to really hear what someone's going through. And so we need to be the kind of people that ask, how are you, and really mean it. We need to take the time to look eyeball to eyeball, spend the time, because that can help so many people in your circle of influence know that they're not alone. Well, in our final minute, I just want to make sure that we take some time. I'm going to do another trivia poll just to see if you guys were paying attention here today. So here, I'm going to stop our current poll and give you a chance to be able to see the new poll come up on your screens there. I love doing this, again, kind of as a giveaway more than anything, but I also want to make sure that you have a chance to be able to kind of rehearse a couple of things, a couple questions that I asked you. So go ahead and answer this first one in regards to, we talked about stigma. We talked about how to lower the stigma. And while you do that, I'm going to get this other screen fixed up for us so that we can have a little bit of an awareness of who is getting these prizes up here on the screen. We, of course, can attend more webinars. We can read more books. We can trust no one, or we can ask, how are you, and mean it. And we, of course, just popped that up there on the screen, didn't we? So grateful for the opportunity to be able to interact with you. Of course, the answer is that we can ask, how are you, and we can truly mean it. And so today, the important conversation that we're having with you is to get you aware of the transparent need to share your story, but also the importance of asking those around you how they're doing and really mean it. That's whether it's your kids, whether it's your coworkers, whether it's your spouse, whether it's the people around you. We want to make sure that we do that. And it looks like our first question was answered by you guys, and it looks like we might have a grape at the top there. I only have one more kind of review question for you, and this is in regards to the ACE study. The Adverse Childhood Experience Study helps us understand what? And it helps us understand how bad things happen, that we should do more research, how trauma can affect our health, or maybe you weren't paying attention and you have no idea. But today, again, we're committed to making sure that we have an idea, that we have a conversation about this, because it's so important. In a second here, I'm going to give you a chance to review our time together, to evaluate how you felt the experience was, so that we can indeed improve on what we're doing, what we're offering. I want to remind you that we're here to serve you. If we can serve you or your community, again, we want to do that. Looks like Grape might be our winner today, so congratulations, Grape, for winning that. And I'm going to just give you a chance here to evaluate our time here at the end. So if you could just be so kind and let us know how you felt that things went. I also want to let you know that we do offer QPR training as part of Remedy Live. If we can serve you, QPR training can be accessed by texting QPR to 494949 or visit remedylive.com/QPR. And also, we've got a wonderful podcast that we actually provide on a regular basis to people that are looking for guidance, encouragement from great leaders. And so as you look for your podcast, check out the Wired podcast. It's available in video, also in audio, and something that we're really proud of. Thank you so much, Adams County, for joining me today, for making time. I went a little bit overboard. Grateful for your answers, for your honesty. Please do all that you can to bring awareness to mental health during this month of May. It is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we want to do all that we can to lower that stigma around mental health and choose to be the kind of people that ask, how are you, and mean it. So we'll talk to you again soon. God bless.
The Get School Tour is committed to helping students, parents, and educators know they're not alone amidst the secret struggles they face. To that end, and to make the Get School Tour more one-on-one focused, we've taken our program into webinar form. Parents can register their kids to experience this unique, age-appropriate, interactive event right on a screen in their family home. During this coronavirus season, it's so important we help students of all ages know their value, and the importance of sharing their secret struggle with a trusted adult so they can be connected with the network of care that surrounds